Punishingly difficult games are all the rage these days, with titles like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and the newest juggernaut, Neo. In their own right, these are all amazing experiences that I suggest everybody go through. But today, we'll be talking about a 2D game conceptualized with all the same elements: the exploration, danger, mystery, reward, and death, which is tied into each of those titles. This ain't your mom and pop's Nintendo. This is Sodden Sanctuary, an ultra-gothic, die-hard action RPG experience for Metroidvania veterans.
Something about these games just clicks with me. You start out with a ton of failure, and before you know it, enemies are bowing right before you. But each of them kind of starts in the same place. They'll create a character, and it has two choices
that affect gameplay. Class, which allows you to choose from a wide range of playstyles based on what stats are given to that class. Then we have a small list of items which you can start with. The real customization comes with building your character through items and leveling. But now I'm getting way ahead of myself. As far as story goes, we begin a simple sailor. Upon waking up to loud screams, a fellow shipmate informs you pirates are here to kidnap the princess on the ship. Then he's murdered. Slashing through up to the ship's deck, our hero is greeted by the Unspeakable Deep. And without warning, either get good or you get dead. Shipwrecked and stranded, you wake up again. This time on an unfamiliar beach. A bottle lays on the ground with a note that says, "Don't abandon hope." Slightly up the shoreline, we meet an old man asking about gods and what creed you align with. Each creed benefits certain character builds, but we'll talk more on that later. He also informs you that there's a sanctuary up ahead. Claiming this sanctuary sets up a respawn where you'll be returning to. A lot. The different regions in the game have their own sanctuaries to be claimed, so you don't have to worry about backtracking far upon your inevitable death. Setting out on the only quest we know of, rescue the princess, we blindly run into a punishing world ahead. Huge medieval castles floating in the sky, teething with ancient guardians left there during a different era of life. Temples to gods which still reside at the top of their homes. Deep caverns dimly lit by torches crawling with all sorts of evil. And run-down villages hidden beyond treetops. This massively interwoven map will have you scraping every corner in search of direction. There's very little given in the way of exposition, adding to the mystique of the island. Sodden Sanctuary has over 22 regions, all anticipating anyone adventuring into them. With sections locked off and items placed just out of reach, progression is required in order to access the whole map. This means a lot of backtracking, and that means getting lost.
Don't worry, hidden throughout the world there are 5 different key abilities. Unlocking them is simple.
NPCs are placed in very specific areas, usually right after a boss fight. Talking to them and agreeing to be branded grants you a new technique for traversing the map, such as wall jumping, air dashing, reversing gravity, and rendering platforms into existence. Sodden Sanctuary truly embraces the exploration style from Metroid titles. As such, doubling back on older locations is important, but remembering those spots can be tricky. The player is never given a map to reference, which is an interesting design choice. Since the game is locked down within a 2D space, you can't really see what areas are in front of you like those other 3D games I was mentioning earlier that lack maps. This will tend to bog down progression and cause hours of aimless wandering. Oddly, I don't think the game would be as enjoyable with a map. Sure, it caused a ton of anguish as I died over and over and over while navigating the island. Being forced to remember the map added to its world building, which helped to keep me engaged. So, catch 22 here. 22 regions, catch 22. The vast bestiary contains 90 horrifying beasts and undead warriors, not to mention the large number of bosses. Every single enemy has a list of items that they'll randomly drop upon death Symphony of the Night style, baby. It sort of makes grinding through the areas rewarding in a way. Maybe that big dude you couldn't farm before has an item you could use now, so grinding is a very important aspect. Although enemy variety is plenty, they share a common AI pattern that you can sort of pick up on, such as knights, which fight just like the player, blocking attacks and reacting to their movement, archers that remain static with the exception of the wood wraiths. These annoyances jump from platform to platform following the player. It makes traversing through the treetops very, very annoying because it's a pitfall-laden area. Then, we have the typical no-brain soldiers. They have one motive: fuse their model with the player and sacrifice themselves without blocking incoming attacks. These guys aren't much of a problem. Mixed in with a group of knights and or archers, it can become a problem really fast. These are only a few of the varied AI and situations awaiting you on this strange island. You'd think this would make combat repetitive and tedious, but it doesn't. The proper placement and variety in hordes can keep situations fresh and the player on edge. Not to mention everything gets bigger and deals out more damage further in. If you do manage to scrape through the onslaught, gold, weapon crafting material, and salt are dropped. What's salt, you say? It's experience gained from battle. Just like any game with RPG elements, value is different depending on enemy. When in possession of salt and you fall to an enemy, they take that salt and you must go kill them to regain it. But if you die on the way to recover said salt, it is lost and the current amount you have on you replaces it at your new position. A bit punishing, yes, but it's also that same mechanic that's very rewarding. If you find yourself beating the odds and gathering enough salt, you can return to any of the sanctuaries throughout. These provide respite from the darkness outside, among many other things. An incremental amount of salt offered to shrines will net black pearls, and a small boost in stats. Black pearls are used for climbing the expansive skill tree. Whips, swords, great hammers, polearms, wands, healing prayers, incantations, light armor, heavy armor, and everything in between. This is what I meant by the create a character is arbitrary. With over 30 spells, a mix of 300 different weapons, shields, and armor, each scaling with certain attributes, allowing for a deeper customization, the real decision starts with building the way you'll play the game. Creeds are bound to select sanctuaries. If aligned with their worldviews, offerings can be made. These allow the player to summon services for purchasing items, crafting new equipment, upgrading current gear, as well as calling in a guide to quick travel from sanctuary to sanctuary. If you find yourself in a house not tied with your devotion, join them or convert the house in one of two ways. Murder its followers, or use that little memory eraser thing from Men in Black.
Cool, so we have this huge open world to play around in, dark, foreboding environments, boundless ways to build a character, and enemies out the wazoo. But, is it actually fun to play?
Well, if one is looking for a game to skip around all tra-la-la, hacking limbs off to their own heart's content, Salt and Sanctuary will have none of that. Pressing an attack button signs you up for a wind-up, swing, and return to neutral position. Only then a follow-up attack or dodge roll can be performed. That's assuming stamina or health are left in the bank. Managing these meters is important for the player to dance all nimbly-bimbly around the enemy. The health flask can be used a limited number of times, but returning to a sanctuary refills it. Furthermore, blocking with an empty meter staggers and leaves the player open to attack. Combat can be anything but instantaneous. It challenges the player's patience and won't hold your hand. Weapons all have a real-world weight to them. Short swords allow the player to make fast slices and stabs, but lack the damage of a slower weapon like the heavy sword. One playstyle allows the player to weave in and out of combat, and the other has the player testing their ability to read an attack and be able to react to it. The first boss fight is about 20 minutes in, with a bit of grinding, and he throws out everything. Whirlwind attacks, leaping haymakers, and bouts of lightning, all testing the limits of your reflexes. Halfway through the life bar, or life bars in some cases, puts these nightmares into their second phase of attack. This'll heat up battle and can flip the script on an unsuspecting player, further testing everything that has been learned throughout the whole entire game.
If you want something a little bit more than what platform games have been offering, then look no further. Simplistic, yet addictive controls lead to a fantastic game experience and one of the deepest combat systems within a 2D space. I already beat this game on PS4, I beat it on Steam as well. And you know what? In December it's coming out with a physical release on the Nintendo Switch. I plan on picking it up, and I'm beating it there too. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm Rewind Mike. I'll check you next time, Saltborn.
This is the Monado's power!